addition, that will be the purpose of this meeting is to only select a replacement for John Brown for the remainder of his term. This is a special meeting, not a routine meeting. And the mission of the Chuckanut Community Forest Park District is to ensure the entirety of the property is protected in perpetuity and in public ownership with respect to its ecological, recreational, and educational functions, and to serve as a fiscal mechanism through which we have paid off the remaining debt and are going into our final year of work. The meeting is going to be recorded. A visual or audio recording of this meeting will be posted on our Chuckanut Community Forest Park District website. Pardon me. And your likeness in the video portion or your voice and as well as your surroundings will be publicly available and viewable on that website. If you choose to speak with your camera off, that's fine. Or by calling on the telephone, only your voice will be recorded. And if that's your preference, that's fine. I want to call the meeting to order and recognize that first we'll have a roll call. Frank James is here. John McLaughlin.
Present.
Okay. Hugh Beatty.
Here.
Thank you. In addition, we have several guests. John Brown, our former board member, is joining us. Robin Albro, our capable and much appreciated secretary, is here. Sarah Brennan is representing our legal counsel tonight as our formal legal counsel, as our regular counsel Bob is at another meeting because this is not a routine scheduled thing. Vince, our former board member, is also here. And we have two candidates as well, Christopher Granis and Ed Grumbeam. We have not yet seen our remaining candidate, but if she shows up, we'd be more than happy to have that happen. And Emma, I have trouble I'm challenged to pronounce your last name properly, but you are welcome as well. Feel free to speak up or not as you wish. If you do want to speak up, you can unmute and do that. I'd like a motion to approve our agenda for today's meeting. Do I hear a motion to, if you reviewed the agenda and believe that it's in order, I'd appreciate a motion. Again, our sole discussion item tonight is the selection of a replacement for John Brown's position for the remainder of his term. Do I hear a motion to accept the agenda?
I move to accept the agenda.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded by Hugh and John McLaughlin. Introductions. I think I already introduced people. I think we should go ahead and, Sarah, if it's appropriate, I think we should have an open session where people can have a few minutes, 3 minutes to say anything they'd like. So I'd like to open that open comment period. Anybody that has a comment, please raise your hand, or if you're not visually present on the screen, please unmute and speak up. Any general comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to our formal agenda.
John Brown raised his hand.
Oh, John, I'm sorry. John, please.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time for me to express an opinion about the qualifications of the people who are running for the office. If it is not, then I'll say things later.
John, I think it would be an appropriate time because later there probably isn't going to be a time because we'll go into executive session for a discussion and come back with a decision after that. So after we have some discussion at this time, but please, please take 3 minutes and say what you'd like.
I'll make it a lot sooner than that. Christopher Granis knows how high a regard I have for him. So does Barbara Zielstra, with whom I often have tea, and a lovely, lovely person. Both Christopher and Barbara have been involved in this entire venture for years and years, and they are immensely qualified and conscientious and informed people. I would like to lend my support to the offer by Ed Grumbein to serve, Dr. Grumbein, because his qualifications are so outstanding, and he is relatively comparative with Christopher and Barbara. He is new to the issue, but he knows the issue very deeply. He's been deeply involved in it, and he has a significant amount of time to guide the board, to contribute to the board. So much as I love Christopher and Barbara, I would like the board to approve Ed Grumbine, who is, from my communications with him just briefly and from comments that he made, is an outstanding person and wonderfully educated and informed. So I just want to say something about my support for Ed Grumbine.
Thank you, John. I think procedurally, it would be good for us to, all of us have, of course, read the qualifications and the interest of the people. Our charge to them was to write a brief summary of what their history of involvement is and what their credentials are to help us out, and I hope everybody's had a chance to read those. If you haven't, they were in the email that was sent out to everyone. And if you haven't had a chance, take a quick look at them. I'd also like to open it up now more formally that our public comment period is over, to have both Christopher and Ed speak to us, and Barbara, if and when she shows up as well. Christopher, would you like to make a comment? And then we, of course, might want to ask you some questions too, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. I think everybody here except Ed and Sarah know who I am and my involvement, and no doubt you have before you the little note that I said listing my qualifications. I will say I would be honored if you chose Barbara instead of, I think we're talking about Barbara Zylstra, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
I'd be honored if she were chosen instead of me. And Ed, I don't know anything about you but except for John's testimonial, and I respect John a great deal, and so I would not be unhappy if you were chosen either.
You are such a gentleman, Christopher. Thank you.
No shit.
I would point out that I did review Christopher's application. He does meet all the qualifications that are necessary for being considered a candidate. And thank you very much for putting your name forward, Christopher. Now, other board members, do you have questions based on what Christopher said, or your prior knowledge of him, or your what he's written? Questions for Christopher? Hugh? John? John McLaughlin.
Got one. Getting here has been a community effort. You know, the saying "it takes a village" comes to mind, and this is only even the work to create and pass the original greenways ballot initiative, all the way through to all walks of life standing up for the place and trying to protect it from development, and then passing the levy that helped create this commission. It has been a community effort. It's been very disheartening recently to see all the misrepresented attacks on this commission and our efforts to try and secure and maintain the future of this place and all the care the community's put into it. So I'm wondering if you have any ideas for how this commission can work towards restoring that sense of community while also trying to ensure a future for this place that we've all worked so hard. Sorry, it's not a simple or easy question.
Right. So how to restore the community faith in the Park District, and how to complete the preservation of the woods. I think that's what you're asking me. And I have to say, I don't know about The first, except to try to understand the naysayers and where they're coming from. It seems to me that it's part of American culture to say, that's mine or that's ours. And therefore, we should be able to do whatever I think we should be able to do. I think that's a cultural thing, and I don't know how to counter that, but there it is. People who want to ride their bicycles and walk their dogs off leash, that's what they want. And since they are helping to pay for this wonderful piece of property, what they don't understand is the creatures who live there. I mean, if they have a voice, it's this commission. And so all I can say is we need to try to let people know that's what we're trying to do, is speak up for the creatures and the plants whose home that wood really is, and impress on everybody that we humans are the visitors. And the second part of the story,
Could I just note for the record that John Hymas has just joined us? Welcome, John. Christopher, please continue.
hi, John. So John McLaughlin asked me if I knew how to bring public trust back to the Park District. And the other thing he asked was, how can we complete the process of protecting as best as possible the woods? Well, I don't know enough of the history. It seems to me that the original agreement negotiated with Kelly and the past park director, it's a conservation easement. Is that what was negotiated some time ago?
Mhm.
Wasn't as good as it should have been. And how can it be changed? It appears to me that the park department's not interested in changing it. So what else can we do? I don't know the answer to that either. I don't know the details of why that conservation easement wasn't better than it is. It bothers me when Jerry Wilbur explained to me that the land trust doesn't think it's strong enough. I don't know why we couldn't have the same conservation easement that the land trust has with the interurban wetland. So I think that would be the thrust that I would take, try to get the park department to agree that all of the woods deserve the protections in that conservation easement. But I have to admit, I don't know the details. I don't know if that's possible.
Thank you, Christopher. Are there other questions that you or John Hymas have for Christopher? John, unmute and speak up. John, you're still muted. Robin, can you unmute John?
All right.
Muted.
Woohoo. Yeah, I don't know all the details myself, but I think that the conservation easement is what is our final leap to work this all out. And I agree with Christopher that maybe that should parallel the interurban and past wetland protection conservation easements we've had in the past. So, I mean, what's the big deal? I know that the park the park wants us to go away as soon as possible, but we're not going to until we get a decent conservation easement plan. So that's where I stand, and I agree with Christopher on that. Anyway, that's my say.
Thank you. Hugh, did you have a question for Christopher, or not that you have to?
I would say that Alan Mariner is the city attorney, and our attorney had talked with him, and then Alan was going to look at it and see if he could sign off on some of the things that we had come up with to modify it. So that's in the process. We haven't heard back from the Ancient Mariner yet, so it's going around on it now.
I still don't see Barbara joining us, so shall we move on then to Ed Grumbine? Ed, would you, I did review Ed's application. He does, like Chris and Barbara, they all three meet the criteria, the qualifications for being candidates. Ed had a written statement that I hope we've all read. And Ed, would you like to just share with us your interest in this particular activity of being on a commissioner on the Chuckanut Community Forest Park District Board? You're muted, Ed.
There we go. I appreciate the opportunity to apply for the position and work on woods issues with you all. And I would be happy to answer any questions after what I'm about to share. I lived in Bellingham in the late 80s and didn't know the woods then. I walked in the area not knowing much about where I was. Then moved away, and Bellingham, was lodged in my heart. And then when my wife and I retired in 2018, we came back to Bellingham. Of course, moving away, I left friends here, so I've been coming here, once every 2 or 3 years for that period of time. So Bellingham was not foreign land to me. And so here we are since 2018. The good news for me and 100 Acre Woods is that I'm a close neighbor. I live right across the parkway from the Rotary Trailhead. And I get over there 3, maybe 4 times a week. When I first moved to Bellingham, I was immediately hired to teach a class in biodiversity to undergraduates at Western. And I immediately saw the existence in 2018 of the work that you all have been doing, both long before and since then, and read all the baseline documents as they existed in 2018, and got the idea to use the woods as a classroom example for my students in ins and outs of management of a loved local place. We covered in that class everything from local issues like the woods to state and national and international issues, but we focused our case study on the woods. And as I was fond of the woods, then the students became enamored as well. So it was very successful as a case study in this class. Since then, of course, I've seen the issues at play, both on the trail, encountering bikers, families, park staff, conservation-oriented folk, kids on bikes, and have gotten to know the area much more deeply since that first year. I've also kept up with the work that you folks have been doing and have read all the reports that have emanated from that work. In the last 6 months or so, as the politics around approving the draft master plan have come into place, I've spent more time than ever before on navigating through those thorny issues. That's when I met Frank a few months ago. and have gone out in the woods with both him and other folks. I met John McLaughlin through the same process. And I feel like, as you folks have already just stated a moment ago, that this next year, the final year of the board, that the conservation easement is a critical issue, and that we need to really be focused to make that final push to the end of the race, so to speak. And I would be fortunate enough to be accepted to help in that process. I don't have much more to say. I've been involved in other states, in other towns, in other countries, with similar issues, how to protect nature and how to manage people's use of those same places at the same time. I've spent my whole academic career at different phases trying to answer that question. As an undergraduate, I was very much focused on the nature part of that equation. And over the last 20 years or so, I came around to understanding that the marriage between nature and people is where the action is. And that's really deepened my appreciation for my own role and my own capacity to share that role with others as a teacher, for example, but to really use that as the framework that I operate from. And the woods is a classic example of different people having different ideas about how to use a common ground, and at the same time understand that that common ground that we might argue about is inarguably the home for the critters, the plants and animals that make their home there. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm happy to answer any questions people might have.
Are there questions from our commissioners for Ed?
Ed, are you teaching up there now this year? Or you got a lot of courses, or just retired totally? Or?
No, I'm not. I taught that one course right after moving here, and I haven't worked at Western since, though most of that probably has to do with COVID. I was offered to teach an online Zoom class, and having done that, I don't know, 15 years ago at another institution, I knew that that was not my cup of tea. I'm a hands-on teacher where field trips to the woods are really important. And if you can't go to the woods, the classroom is the next best place to be hands-on. So I turned that offer down. And as Western is springing back to normal life, I haven't been engaged since.
Don or John, do you have questions?
I would bring up, I love your comments and letters, Ed. And I would just say that the 100-acre wood is different from other parks. And so I really love the Frank brings up restoration, preservation, and what was the third one, Frank? Whatever. Yeah. And that's the most important thing. And I left Bellingham for a few years, from 89 until 96. And the reason we moved back was because we missed it. And also we were in the Portland area, and I was getting poison oak 5 or 6 times a year. And it was hotter than hell in the summer, and there was no good place to swim. And so we moved back here and jumped right into this. And it wasn't just the forest, it was our neighborhood too. And so we just got active and been active ever since. And I really appreciate you applying, Ed. And I like what you say.
Thank you.
John McLaughlin, do you have any questions?
Sure. And I hesitate to ask this because I used your Ghost Bears book as a field course textbook decades ago. So I feel like I'm asking a question of the master. It's a variation on the same thing I asked Christopher, where it's maybe a little bit refined after everything has been said. Essentially, what we have is I think part of the pushback against the commission and even some of the feelings that have motivated a lot of the disinformation thrown against us is a difference in opinion of the priority of essentially utilitarian versus intrinsic values of the place, where people who live in the district have paid their taxes, paid for greenways, and then maybe even paid for the park district, believe they're owed the ability to use the place however they want. And then there are others who have argued that this is the only home for the organisms that live there, and we have a responsibility to provide for them too. A middle ground might be the allowing for the natural habitats, the other organisms that live there, and all the processes that protection would support actually enhances the experience of many people who visit there. But ultimately, it does seem to be a conflict between people who want to do whatever they want there, regardless of the impact, versus those who want to restrain human uses. And I'm wondering if you have any ideas for how to negotiate and navigate that conflict so that we don't get more of what we've been having, and that is a de facto priority given to recreation uses.
Well, I liked what Christopher said a few moments ago. You know, our society is structured the way it is, right? And all politics is negotiation, and we benefit from that. It's tough sometimes to not get everything you want. And I'm speaking from my own sense of not getting everything I want. And yet, connected to what you just said, John, folks who you disagree with are probably in the same boat. They'd like to get everything they want. So knowing that before any issue gets going, the behavior that served me the best over my life has been finding out what people want and then working from there, of course, describing what I would like or what a deer or a beaver might like or a wetland plant might like in ways that will connect as best as possible to the other folks who don't see it that way. The challenge of communicating ideas, whatever the ideas are, is to convince the other people that your ideas are worth listening to, if not voting for. And if you approach people with respect and try to find out where they're coming from, and try your best to describe where you're coming from, then you might make some progress. You might not. But at least that's the process I attempt to engage in. What's on my side is that over my career, I've worked with a lot of different kinds of people, and I've had a chance to practice this. And sometimes I've had success, and sometimes I've had less success. But one thing I've learned is how to talk with people, people who don't agree with me. In terms of the woods, whether that skill ever led to a stronger conservation easement or less disinformation, I'm not going to guarantee that, but I'm willing to put my shoulder to the wheel and describe the wonders of the woods to folks and help understand where they're coming from it, and then try to work it out.
Thanks, Ed. We have one more candidate, and Barbara, I'm so glad that you made it. Thank you. And what we've done so far is we basically, everybody's had an opportunity to read your written statement. And I've, of course, checked and you, Christopher, and Ed all qualify, they all meet the criteria for being candidates. And so we're at a place right now where we're going to give you a few minutes to say whatever you'd like, and then each of the commissioners an opportunity to ask a question. Are you feel prepared to launch into that, Barbara? You're muted.
All right. I didn't know that I'd be presenting anything. You
Oh,
all
you can present as much or as little as you like. It's up to you.
I don't come with a scientific background or, like Ed was talking about. I do come from a long time of working on this project. I mean, this property, and trying to get us to the place where we are now. And as you know, I care very deeply about it and trying to preserve it. I guess my strengths that I could bring to the commission are not of a technical manner. They are more of understanding the politics of things and trying to be creative. And what Ed said about, engaging with people. I feel like that's what we've been doing with the whole process of the master plan. And that is sort of finished. So now we're just down to trying to negotiate a change to the easement. And at the last meeting, I really appreciated the comments that, there were some other options for someone to hold the easement. And I was very intrigued by the possibility of really finding the best organization to hold the easement. And that's where I see the work of the commission going forward. And the other thing I bring is a history of knowing what this process has been and having been involved in it, like Christopher, for all these years. So I'd be happy to answer if you have any specific questions.
John or Hugh, questions?
Well, listening to the three of you folks tonight, I'm wondering why, since this is a non-salaried position and it's not you're not going to be standing for re-election or even election, because we're going to probably be done before there's an election where they'd be on the ballot. Couldn't I just offer an amendment to expand the commission to or by two more, and we expand the commission, put all three of them on our group.
I thought about that, Hugh. I didn't get a chance to ask our legal counsel, and we've got our stand-in legal counsels. If that's a serious question, we can ask Sarah and get an answer. I'm not sure we have the authority under our bylaws to do that, but
yeah, I was
I
going to
have a question for
say
the lawyer.
I would bring that up at the meeting. I don't know what the process would be, but with Bob at the regular meeting, just because that is outside technically the scope, even though we're addressing appointing people now. So that's going to be my info on that one.
So we could do that potentially at a future meeting, if that were the will of the board after reviewing our bylaws to see what the proper process would be. Is that right, Sarah?
That's my understanding, because I haven't reviewed the bylaws. So Bob Carmichael question at the regular meeting, in 2 weeks. So
I think we're stuck selecting one person tonight, and if we want to expand to more people, and these are very, very good people, I'd certainly consider that.
I wonder if the other two that didn't get it tonight would volunteer to come to the meetings online and for the next,
I think from a legal point of view, I've been counseled that we should stick to this one issue at this meeting, and because it was.
Yeah,
noted
I was just
as
gonna
a
say,
special
let's-
Purpose meeting, I think we need to stick to the special purpose, and doing something else probably would not be a good idea. Sarah, that's what you were gonna say too?
Yeah, that would be my advice. Yeah, let's just stick this, but Hugh, yeah, we bring it up before the meeting for the general meeting next.
Barbara, please.
I'd just be happy for you to pick any, I'm happy to withdraw. I will continue to come to the meetings and put my 2 cents worth in. And I don't feel that, you know, that I have to be a voting member to participate. So, you know, I can just sort of pull back here. And it doesn't mean I won't come to the meetings. As you know, I've been coming anyway, so.
Mr. Hymas or Mr. McLaughlin?
Yeah,
Mr.
join
McLaughlin,
my
you're-
club, Barbara.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. You're such a gracious person. Thank you. John McLaughlin, do you have a question?
I think John Hymas just raised his hand.
John needs to unmute then. Still not unmuted, John. Robin, can you unmute him? While we're waiting for that, I'll note that John Blethen has joined us, and now I recognize Emma. Emma is a student from Western, and not to disclose anything you don't want to know, but she's if I recall, the editor of the Planet magazine.
all right.
Very interested in these issues. She contacted me once.
She's more than that. She's writing
Ah.
for the Walk and Watch.
Oh, so,
Yeah.
and be as quiet as you like, Emma, or speak up if you like. And John, always welcome to see you too. Mr. Hymas, you're unmuted.
I'm back. Yes. It's a toss up between all three wonderful candidates. That's where I stand. Make me vote and I will, but you have it.
All right, then I'll ask
Thank you.
Barbara a variation on the same question I've asked the others. You have consistently been a voice that seems like it's in the minority of speaking up for all those who don't have human voices, whose only home is this place. And it seems like in much of the public discourse, that's been a minority voice. Although I don't think I think the foundation, the motivation to protect this place and keep it from being paved over and cut down and filled was some of the values you've been articulating. So I'm wondering if you have any ideas for how to either heal the division or work more cooperatively with those who see this as a place to recreate, regardless of the impacts, and reconcile those interests with the interests that you've articulated so well about maintaining it as a home for all the non-humans.
Okay. I don't think that there are a lot of there's this groundswell of people who want to just abuse the wood. I don't think that that's true. I had thought if I'd gotten organized earlier, before I sent my last letter to the council, I would have collected neighborhood signatures to agree with it because it was very concise. And I know that there are a lot of people, they just haven't been active, who treasure these woods. But it is a real big divide of people who want to be able to use them. And some people, the bulk of people who want to use them, I think will be careful, but there is a segment that just doesn't care. And I don't know how, aside from, you know, try, I don't even know who they are particularly, but as I talked about with you guys before, the commission before, watching what's happened with bicycles in Fairhaven Park and on the interurban offshoots has really distressed me, because it's so damaging. And once, I mean, it's so damaging, even the ivy won't grow. So you know how bad that is. How's that'll grow anywhere? So, you know, I realize that there's a big part of education that needs to come in. And I'd even thought about approaching the parks, and I don't think they're probably have the resources to do it, but some group, and maybe it'll be a bicycle group, who could put together a short presentation for middle schools, high schools, and do it in a way that actually educates them about the woods, and not just our special woods, but all of the forests, and why it's really important to stay on the trails, and why you destroy so much when you don't. And I thought if you went to middle schools and you got those kids already thinking about it, that it might actually make a difference. But that's the bicycles, and the dogs. I don't know how to monitor and deal with the fact that the city's going to allow dogs, because in the master plan they did. So was
Speaking about bikes, I just like to, as a side, say that what happened to me on my birthday, October 4th, I rented the Fairhaven Park Pavilion, Upper Pavilion, from 8 in the morning until 8 at night. And I had this long party. And at 8 o'clock or 8:30 or so, I was leaving, and I got my wheelchair and I'm rolling out. And all of a sudden, this passel of bike riders with helmets and lights on come up and go into the forest through that entrance there.
oh,
I couldn't even yell at them. They just did it so quick, you know. What are they doing in there at night, you know? Because I would have yelled at them if I could have, but it was like, it just ruined my evening.
It is disturbing, and you're not the only person to witness it. I think several of us here have been there when that, very likely the same group is either returning from the biking up on Chuckanut Mountain, and they come through in a big pack, and they come at a high rate of speed. And
Wow.
night travel, high speed travel, those are the problems with bikes, and it's a big problem, and one that we need to find solution for.
No biking at night sign or something would be good.
Well, we have significant amount of work to do between here and there, you know, on several fronts. But be that as it may, what I'd like to do is now go into executive session. I hope all of you can stay with us. We hope not to be very long. It is now 6:47. Yes, Robin?
I think what I'm going to do, because it looks like it's easier, is put everybody but the commissioners back in the waiting room. So it's like you're waiting to be admitted to the room. So it'll just be the commissioners and our attorney and me in the executive session. And then as soon as we're done, I'll bring everybody back. So
that's good.
are we ready to do that now?
No, you're not ready to do it yet. The people who are waiting outside want to know, are you going to, Sarah, I'm making a joke. Is this going to take you 3 minutes, or are you going to talk about it for an hour?
I was just going to say that, can we make a commitment to be back before 7 o'clock? Do you think we can speed through this at that kind of rate?
Yeah, and if I just want to clarify, just for procedure, that, you know, if we say 7, we have to start at 7. So, you know, we'll make sure that that's thing. And this is, you know, under very authorized code of RCW for reviewing the qualifications for an appointed position.
Right.
Yeah.
It looks like Christopher has a question
You
or.
want to say something, Christopher?
Yeah, I was very impressed with what Ed said about being able to talk with people that have different views than he has. That's not something I'm really good at. So if you wanted to use that as a reason to choose him over me, feel free. I'll be very happy. Thank you.
I'm confident we've got you and Barbara here forever because you're here forever. So, can we then agree to be back in a little less than 11 minutes? Is that going to be adequate time, team? Great, let's do it.
Okay.
So
This is going to take me just a minute I'm going to pause the recording and then put everybody into waiting room. So just give me a minute.
we're going to be lost in space there for a
This
minute.
meeting is being recorded.
Well, this is to reconvene. We've had a discussion, executive session. We're coming back. We do need to vote in public, and so that'll take place now. I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor of Ed Grumbine, please raise your hand. All those in favor of Barbara Zylstra?
We raise our hand more than once?
I raise both hands and feet. All those for Christopher Granis. So our new commissioner will be Ed Grumbine, and Barbara and Christopher. Everything positive got said about both of you just now in our little executive committee meeting. We very much want you to continue to be involved, and I think really the technical expertise that Ed brings. I'm looking forward to having, as we do a very difficult and challenging renegotiation of this conservation easement. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take political action. It's going to take technical action. It's going to take probably legal action to get the document that we need to really protect this forested wetland in the long term.
May I make a formal motion that we pursue the option or look into the option of expanding the commission by 2 additional members?
Sarah, are we allowed to do that at this meeting?
I would hesitate to at this meeting, just because special meetings are specific to one item, and while it is related, I wouldn't want us to do that and then get ahead of ourselves and have to fix a mistake down the line. But I would say at the October 26th meeting, it can be discussed.
So let me say that we did have a brief discussion about what all the options are, and other options can be put on the table at our next meeting. We just aren't allowed to do that at this meeting. So just stay in touch at the next meeting for potential other opportunities. Is there more discussion for the good of the order? It is 7:02.
I read Nicole Oliver's press release, and I disagreed with something in there. She said that it was passed in 5 neighborhoods to set up the district. And in fact, it was not all 5 neighborhoods, it was parts of 5 neighborhoods. We did it on a political basis with 13.5 precincts. And precincts are smaller than the neighborhoods, and some parts of Happy Valley were not at all in the vote because they wanted to not have the students overwhelm the vote. You know, they wanted to show that it was concentrated.
We need to stick to this issue for this meeting. We can.
I was
talk
gonna
about
say,
that
yeah,
all
sorry,
you
I
like.
couldn't hear too well, but yeah, sorry, that's gonna have to wait. I know it's the legal, technical terms of it, but for the
And
purpose of a special
Please bring
meeting.
it up at our next meeting, Hugh. Happy to hear about it then. I bet Sarah briefed us earlier that we need to stick to just this issue for now as a special meeting.
Aren't we done with the issue now or what?
I think we're done with the meeting.
I just thought.
And we can talk all we want about whatever issues people want to talk about at our next meeting. Then we're back at the regular planned meeting that we'll have for business in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, when the 26th, and Bob will be there. Both Kat and I will be gone, but Bob will be there.
Thank you, Sarah. So Christopher, Barbara, thank you for coming forward. Ed, thank you for coming forward. And I look forward to working with all three of you go in the future. Thank you. With that, I would, since we have only one purpose for this meeting, I'm going to call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks for hosting, Frank.
Thank you. And actually, it's Robin that does all the hard work. Thank you, Robin,
Oh,
for
I know.
negotiating
Of
all those
course.
difficult things for us.
Can I
Love
ask
you.
a technical legal question? Thank you guys for your kind words. About Ed doing, he has to do his a test before a judge thing. So I'm assuming that Sarah, you or Bob will help us with that, or I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll follow up with that because you'll have to file a certificate of appointment with the oath with the auditor's office. So I imagine we'll follow up. I mean, tomorrow I'll probably have Taryn reach out to you, Robin, with all of that and give some instruction. But that will be the next step is you should file a certificate of appointment and then it'll be official.
Okay, and then I'll get in touch with you, Ed, when I have all that.
I'd like to say congratulations, Ed, and thanks to everybody for all the good work you've been doing for all this time.
Yeah.
Thanks, Christopher.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Christopher.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Sarah,
everybody.
for all your legal direction.
Yeah, nice to meet all of you and congrats, Ed. You guys do great work. So glad I could help in some little way. So
Safe travels and enjoy your new job too.
oh, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Night. Oh, shit. Whoops, sorry.